a night team, streets swamped and cars stuck as South Florida sees another day of relentless rain.
A flood watch extended through tomorrow night. When will this end? We have 19 coverage.
Capital controversy. Florida lawmakers are set to vote on one of the most restrictive abortion bills in the country. The 19 live in Tallahassee.
A state bill cracking down on drag shows. Now performers say they're being unfairly targeted.
Prejudice. Bottom line.
He let his neighbor park some houses on his property. When the neighbor wouldn't move them, his good deed got him hit with a $10,000 fine.
Because while they didn't belong to me, the fact that they were on my property meant I got the fine for it.
Can he remove his neighbor's property, and does he have to pay the fine? Help Me Howard moves in with the answer.
And we have a 19 News alert. A Brightline train and a car carrier collide in Hollywood. We are live. I'm Craig Stevens.
I'm Belkis Nuri. It's a busy night of news, and it starts right now.
This is 7 News at 10. Now at 10, flooded out.
We don't need cars to get around here in South Florida with all this rain. We need boats.
Stalled out.
Everything's flooded. There's nowhere to go.
FLL shut down. And a dose of danger.
The National Weather Service has issued a tornado warning.
South Florida hit with a flood of trouble. This is a 7 News Weather Alert.
Hello and welcome, everyone. A dangerous night, and the weather alerts keep coming.
Just issued a few minutes ago, yet another tornado warning for Broward County. Chief Meteorologist Phil Farrow is here to explain that and everything else that's happening at the Weather Center now. Phil.
Indeed, this is the fourth tornado warning that we have seen today. This one will remain in place until 10:15 tonight for the area highlighted in red from Dania Beach through Sunrise, Davie, just north of Pembroke Pines. Now, this cell is capable of producing a tornado along with gusty winds. The storm is over Ravenswood Estates or over Hollywood, moving west at around 20 miles per hour. Most of Miami-Dade County is dry, but just pesky storms continuing to sit right along the coast of Broward. You can see the icon right there, the little twister. That indicates the possibility of a tornado or a funnel cloud coming down just to the north of Dania Beach. Very heavy rain from Riverland through downtown Fort Lauderdale, and it's just sitting there. And speaking of heavy rain, take a look at this video from Fort Lauderdale. Just blinding sheets of rain, gusty winds. At times, it was just terrible driving, a sea of brake lights out on the streets with that wind coming in horizontally due to all of the gusty winds. It was hard to get around. Meanwhile, as we come back to Broward County, there is also a flash flood emergency. This is rarely issued by the National Weather Service. Too much rain, too fast. The ground cannot absorb any more rainfall. Floodwaters keep rising rapidly. The National Weather Service says this is a dangerous situation and do not venture out. The area under this flash flood emergency is highlighted in red from the coast through Plantation, Playland Estates, and from Fort Lauderdale down south in through Dania Beach. Flash flood warnings also remain in place for the area highlighted in green here, and also extending now in through northeastern Broward County. This will remain in place until 11:15. How long will this last? We're going to take a look at that a little bit later on in weather.
Well, as Phil just explained, much of Broward is underwater.
It is scary. Neighborhoods are soaked, and Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International remains closed, leaving air travelers stranded. We have extensive night team coverage. We're going to start with Sheldon Fox. He's in a flooded-out Hollywood neighborhood with more. Sheldon.
You talked about it being dangerous and scary and things deteriorating fast. We experienced that firsthand tonight. We had seen it all week, really, but tonight was as bad as it's been all week long. Right now, we are at Diplomat Parkway and Atlantic Shores Boulevard on a elevated portion of a bridge from Atlantic Shores Boulevard here in Hallandale Beach. And as we step down off of this portion of the bridge, we're going to walk it a little bit toward Diplomat Parkway, because this is where we almost ran into some serious trouble ourselves. We were assigned to head into a neighborhood that had some serious flooding, but just as we made our way down Diplomat Parkway, our photojournalist Lucas and I decided it was time to park the SUV and not move any farther because the water was so high and so problematic, and you can see all of the cars beyond this point. I know it's dark, but a lot of brake lights, and now you've got a big wrecker out there dealing with the stalls. Multiple stalled out vehicles tonight because the water was rising so fast, the rain was coming down so fiercely and so hard, and this is the result of that. You've got people all over this section of Hallandale Beach stuck in traffic with cars that aren't working, walking through the water. We watched a family try to walk through the water and then fall down on the ground. Luckily, they were okay. But this is just a snapshot of what's going on in this section and many others across South Florida. Watch. High water, horrible conditions for anyone outside. Hallandale Beach in Hollywood hit especially hard, with an eye-popping onslaught of rain and flooding. Diplomat Parkway and Atlantic Shores Boulevard was where waves of floodwater lapped against big homes, and where passing vehicles, if they somehow weren't stalled, caused conked-out cars to bob up and down in the middle of the street, which looks like a river. Busy Hallandale Beach Boulevard was where you also didn't want to be behind the wheel. But so many were. They were caught in it, like so many others across South Florida. Rain and flooding along North 16th Ave and Shenandoah Street in Hollywood had water coming up to this garage. Just part of the miserable weather week that was in South Florida. And it's only Wednesday night. Back out live we come to the intersection of Atlantic Shores Boulevard and Diplomat Parkway. That tells part of the story. Lots of people with cars that just don't work anymore because of all of this flooding. They tried to make it home. They tried to make it through the neighborhood here in Hallandale Beach, and it didn't work out successfully for them. That has been happening for days now across South Florida. The problems back down this road as well, on Diplomat Parkway and on so many other streets, and now there is a huge other traffic problem. Let's punch up the traffic camera and show you what's happening here. A traffic camera from 95 giving you this view here. A car carrier, we're told, was hit by a Brightline train. You heard that at the beginning of the newscast. Some of the backlog and massive problems associated with that. We know that Hallandale Beach Boulevard and Federal Highway is also terribly jammed up. This just an awful, awful night and an awful week with complications from flooding and terrible weather just about everywhere in South Florida. And in this section of Hallandale Beach and in Hollywood, well, this is some of the worst for now. We're live in Hallandale Beach. Sheldon Fox, 7 News 19.
Yeah, Sheldon, we'll talk more about that accident in just a couple of minutes, and we'll get back with you later on.
Amazing what's happening there in Hollywood. Let's move now to Fort Lauderdale. The night team's Franklin White has a look at the flooding there and elsewhere in Broward.
It's been raining consistently for hours, and here in Fort Lauderdale, the flooding is bad. But it's not just bad here. It's bad all across the county. Broward County getting a beating Wednesday night as rounds of relentless rain and severe flooding left the majority of the area soaked and soggy. In Fort Lauderdale, the street was like a river near Southwest 20th Street and 4th Avenue, leaving some cars stalled, stuck, and their drivers stranded, while others dared to drive through it. Even this ambulance, with its lights flashing, struggled to get through the rising water. The driving conditions were rough on I-95 and Griffin Road. Visibility from this view showed the gray and gloomy sky and bumper-to-bumper traffic. And it was a whiteout along this stretch of 595. But the washout wasn't just here. Fort Lauderdale police forced to shut down this section of 17th Street between Andrews Avenue and Southwest 4th Avenue due to impassable conditions. And it was a downpour in Dania Beach, too. Intense street flooding also leaving cars stalled near Bryan Road and South Bering Street and forcing roads to be shut down near Southwest 4th Avenue and Sterling Road. In a similar situation in Hollywood, near North 46th Avenue and St. Andrew Street. Sunrise got soaked too. Parts of Sawgrass Mills Mall and its parking deck was underwater, as well as this neighborhood near Northwest 117th Lane and West Oakland Park Boulevard. Ponding and street flooding was also an issue in this area of Cooper City near Sterling Road.
All neighborhoods.
And in this neighborhood along Island Drive in Miramar. And as you can see, the rain has not let up, and you are urged to use your best judgment when driving through these conditions. Reporting in Fort Lauderdale, Franklin White, 7 News, 19.
Well, the weather actually shut down operations at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport.
Nicole Enchilada there with what has turned into a nightmare travel day and night.
Well, about 4 hours into this situation here at FLL, and the rain is still coming down. The traffic still here in the parking garages, barely moving.
I've seen it flood, but it's never been this bad.
Bad enough that an elderly man had to be pulled from his flooded car outside Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. His rescuers struggling to walk in waist-deep water. Water pouring onto the northbound Federal Highway entrance to the airport, paralyzing traffic going in.
I'm supposed to leave. It was 7:25, but then I got a message about an hour ago. It's leaving us an hour later.
And not an inch of movement going out. Around 5:40, the airport shut down. Officials asking people not to come to the airport or to leave. Water flooding the tarmac.
And everybody's phones was blaring off. And I'm from Ireland. I've never seen a tornado before, and I've never experienced anything like that. So I was panicking. I wasn't afraid that the plane would blow away.
But off the plane, it wasn't any better. In fact, it was likely worse. The rain relentless, flooding lower levels of a parking garage.
It's really scary.
And the flooding on surrounding roadways and on airport property led to hours-long gridlock, trapping drivers in their cars.
There were no public announcements.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that's frustrating. We'd have just stayed in the terminal if we'd known.
I had this pull on the side. Streets were flooded everywhere.
Mark Barber was trying to get to a friend's mother in her flooded home.
Everywhere was flooded out, every which way to go down 84. So I thought I could swing through the airport, but I'm stuck here.
Inside the terminal and outside in traffic, it's just a waiting game, waiting for the rain to end.
I'm going to be here for 2 weeks, so I will have time to enjoy my family.
Now, we have seen some frustration with FLL on social media. We reached out to the public information officer about what the situation really is with folks trying to leave, and she told me not much has changed because it is still raining, that folks can leave, but it is just very difficult to pull out into these roadways that are blocked and congested by so much traffic and water. So really, right now, it's just a waiting game. Reporting at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport, Nicole Enchilada, 7 News, 19.
Incredible. Stay with the storm station for the latest on all this nasty weather. Phil's going to be back in a few minutes, and we will have updates all night long on WSVN.com and across all of our social media platforms.